You know the saying, meeting makers make it. That comes from many places. If you attend 12-step meetings, this podcast's for you. This is Beth Wee in the Koinonia Kitchen with Lee Kimball. Hey Lee, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, Beth. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, we're going to talk today about 12-step meetings and the importance of those. You got any thoughts to kick it off?
Do I have any thoughts to kick it off? Yes, it is important. Now, you know, the first thing that the first word that comes to my mind when you started talking about it is just connection.
Yeah.
You know, it's a way for me to connect with others, with a power greater than myself, with my higher power, and, you know, not be alone, isolated.
Right. Well, you know, the three things for Beth Wee are connect, communicate, and thrive. And I think that happens at a 12-step meeting. No matter what you're going to 12-step meetings for, it's wonderful to not forget what you're powerless over. And somehow, by attending a meeting where all the people in that room are agreeing that they have a powerless stance and they're working together to overcome one day at a time, to live a better life one day at a time, I think that that's a big deal about going to a meeting.
Well, it's been referred to as a common problem and a common solution.
Right.
And there used to be, or I assume maybe there still is, a saying, keep it green,
Yeah.
which is remember from whence you came.
Right.
In that book, for the alcoholics, in the Alcoholics Anonymous book, there's a paragraph where it says, unable to recall with sufficient force the misery and suffering of even a week or a month ago. And that sufficient force is important because that's the difference between a memory and being able to bring the experience to mind with sufficient force to remind somebody, I don't ever want to be there again.
Absolutely. You know, in the 12-step meetings that I've attended, depending on what the group is for, you introduce yourself sometimes with the thing that you're powerless. Like I've heard people say, my name is this and I'm an addict. My name is this, I'm an alcoholic. My name is this and I gamble.
Yeah, identifying.
They identify the powerless stance, and but just saying it out loud when they say their name, they remind themselves that this is a one day at a time solution. I also think that 12-step meetings begins the work of networking. I think networking for any kind of recovery is super important. Having a host of people that you could turn to if you were having a tough time.
The whole recovering concept, and that went back to when the initial 12 steps were made and how many times they've been adapted by different, the first word in those 12 steps is we.
We.
It is not I.
Meetings bring you to the we.
Yeah.
Well said. You know, you hear solutions that you may not have thought about if you're in a 12-step meeting. And it's kind of a funny thing. You might get the opportunity there to actually serve other people and get out of yourself. And when you're first trying to start a new way of living, service is really important because self-centeredness becomes a way of life for anyone in a powerless stance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another big part too, Beth, is identification, where when somebody is listening to somebody that's been there,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell.
Yes.
I mean, they can really tell, and there's a different credibility. I've worked in the mental health field, and I've known some physicians that have a wonderful understanding and grasp of different things, but you know, it's kind of like I can read a book all day about being pregnant, and I can tell you about being pregnant. I will never know the experience of having been pregnant.
Well said. Well said. Now, that does not mean that you don't need your therapy or you don't need your doctors or whatever else. Because sometimes objectivity is what you want, but identification, it makes you feel belonging.
And I'm not alone.
yeah, I'm not alone in a 12-step meeting. You know, it's really important to hear other things too. Are you struggling with a relationship with a higher power? You'll hear other people and how they relate to their higher power. You'll hear how they fell into a relationship, or how they resisted, or how they, surrendered, or how they, whatever it is. You might hear what you need to hear, and it won't be on purpose. It's kind of funny how that happens, isn't it? How you're in a meeting and you're like, oh, I'm in such a bad mood. And they talk about gratitude and you're like, oh my gosh, please don't bring that up. I am so ungrateful right now. And yet, in that 12-step meeting, you hear just what you needed to hear to change the way you're thinking.
Well, and so many of the challenges that the 12 steps can work on involve obsession. And when you have obsession, my mind, when I obsess on something, will lock on it. Like the clutch is slipping. And one of the analogies that you use that I just love is of the kaleidoscope. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm seeing negative, all I'm seeing is negative, and it's going to grow. Everything I'm going to look at is going to be negative.
Right.
If I can twist the kaleidoscope just a bit, the whole picture changes.
Right. The other thing is, when you mentioned obsession, when you have obsessive thinking, it is like habitual, and you have to interrupt that habit. And one of the ways to interrupt that habit is to go to a 12-step meeting. Believe it or not, in that 1 hour, the obsession will kind of fade into the background, because you will be focused on something completely different that's still about the obsession, but it's not the obsession bothering you. And I think that habits are a good way. Like on Monday, I go to this meeting. On Thursday, I see so-and-so at another meeting. Or on Saturday morning, I go out for breakfast with a bunch of friends after the whatever meeting. If you need a 12-step meeting, own it. How many meetings a week do you need to feel okay? Own that. That's all about you. That's all a commitment to yourself. It's a desire to stop whatever's been haunting you and robbing you of the best life you can have. That might be a substance, that might be a behavior. It doesn't matter. There's most likely a 12-step group for that, right?
And what we're sharing with you is, myself, I'm a person that, I'm a logic person. Mm-hmm. And, explain to me how something works, and I'm in. And the suggestions of, number one, going to the meetings and suggestions you'll find there, more than likely you're not going to understand them, but you're going to hear other people's experience. This is what I did. This is what happened, positive and negative.
Right.
And that's important.
We're going to close with this. In one of the books of the first group that started the 12 Steps, which was Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a book called The 12 Steps and the 12 Traditions. A great book if you're working the 12 steps. I don't care what you're working it for. The 12 and 12, as it's the slang term for it, is a wonderful book. And the last sentence in the chapter on step 2 is this: every meeting is an assurance that God will restore me to sanity if I rightly relate myself to him. You feeling a little crazy? Get your behind to a meeting. Lee, thanks for talking about meetings.
Love it.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. It's time to take addiction out of the shadows and shine the encouraging light of recovery on everyone affected. Good Seed Podcast is powered by BethWE.com, a nonprofit ministry based in Vero Beach, Florida. We'll start the uncomfortable conversations that turn despair into hope and complacency into action. Connect, communicate, and thrive with us. Check us out online at BethWE.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk again soon.